The Aegean Islands, a cluster of strategically significant islands nestled between the Anatolian coast and mainland Greece, were once under the Turkish control. Their loss was a gradual and multifaceted process shaped by geopolitical, military, and diplomatic factors over centuries. This video explores the historical trajectory that led to the Turks losing these islands, focusing on the key events, the role of international actors, and the long-term consequences for the region. The Aegean Islands came under Ottoman control during the height of the empire's power in the 15th and 16th centuries. Conquests such as the capture of Rhodes in 1522 and the subsequent annexation of other islands marked the Ottoman naval dominance in the eastern Mediterranean. These islands were not just territorial acquisitions, but also served as strategic outposts for controlling maritime trade routes and securing the empire's western frontiers. The island's local populations, composed mainly of Greek Christians, were integrated into the Ottoman millet system, allowing a degree of cultural autonomy under the overarching authority of the Sultan. Despite the initial consolidation, the Ottoman hold over the islands was not absolute. Their geographical dispersion and rugged terrain made them difficult to govern effectively. The Ottoman navy, though powerful in its prime, struggled to maintain consistent control over the islands, particularly as European naval powers began to challenge Ottoman supremacy. The Battle of Lepanto in 1571 marked a turning point for Ottoman naval dominance. Although the Ottomans quickly rebuilt their fleet after their defeat by the Holy League, the battle symbolized the beginning of a shift in maritime power in the Mediterranean. Over the next 2 centuries, European powers such as Venice, Spain, and later Britain and France became increasingly assertive in the region. This decline in naval power was compounded by internal issues within the Ottoman Empire. Administrative corruption, economic stagnation, and technological stagnation in naval warfare rendered the Ottoman navy less effective in protecting its maritime territories. The Aegean Islands, caught between the advancing Europeans and the weakening Ottomans, became vulnerable to external intervention. The 18th and 19th centuries were marked by the growing influence of European powers in Ottoman affairs. The rise of nationalism in Europe, coupled with the strategic interests of Britain, Russia, and France, turned the Ottoman Empire into the sick man of Europe. The Greek War of Independence was a significant moment in this process. Inspired by nationalist ideas and supported by Britain, France, and Russia, the Greeks waged a successful war against Ottoman rule. Although the war primarily affected mainland Greece, it had a profound impact on the Aegean Islands. Many islands became hotbeds of revolutionary activity and were effectively wrested from Ottoman control during the conflict. The Treaty of Constantinople in 1832 formally established an independent Greek state, although not all the Aegean Islands were immediately included in this new entity. The final blow to Ottoman control over the Aegean Islands came during the Balkan Wars in 1912 and 1913. These conflicts, fought between the Ottoman Empire and an alliance of Balkan states, resulted in significant territorial losses for the Ottomans. As part of the First Balkan War, Greece captured most of the Aegean Islands, capitalizing on the Ottoman military's inability to defend these dispersed territories effectively. The Treaty of London in 1913 and the subsequent Treaty of Bucharest formalized Greece's control over the islands, although their final status remained a contentious issue. The Treaty of Ushi was signed in 1912 between the Ottoman Empire and Italy at the conclusion of the Italian-Turkish War. As part of the agreement, the Ottomans ceded control of Libya to Italy and agreed to a temporary Italian occupation of the Dodecanese Islands in the Aegean. Although Italy promised to return the islands to the Ottomans after the war, the outbreak of the Balkan Wars delayed this process. The islands remained under Italian control despite Ottoman protests, marking the beginning of their de facto separation from Ottoman sovereignty. The Ottoman Empire's defeat in the First World War in 1918 and the Treaty of Sèvres in 1920 further complicated the situation. The treaty formally ceded most of the Aegean Islands to Greece, including the Dodecanese, which were still under Italian occupation. However, the treaty was never fully implemented due to the Turkish War of Independence, led by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. The conflict effectively invalidated Sèvres, leaving the fate of the islands to be decided in a new treaty. The Treaty of Lausanne in 1923 ultimately sealed the fate of the islands. Following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire and the establishment of the Republic of Turkey, the new Turkish state prioritized securing its Anatolian heartland over reclaiming lost territories in the Aegean. The treaty recognized Greek sovereignty over the Aegean Islands, except for a few near the Turkish coast. The loss of the Aegean Islands was not merely a result of military defeats, but also strategic miscalculations by the Ottoman leadership. Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, the Ottoman Empire struggled to adapt to the changing geopolitical landscape. Its inability to modernize its navy and effectively counter European influence in the region left the Aegean Islands vulnerable. Moreover, the Ottomans often underestimated the impact of nationalism and the growing aspirations of the island's predominantly Greek populations. While the millet system allowed for a degree of local autonomy, it did little to address the underlying grievances of the Christian populations who increasingly viewed Ottoman rule as oppressive. This disconnect between the Ottoman state and its subjects on the islands contributed to the island's eventual separation. Geography also played a critical role in the loss of the Aegean Islands. The island's proximity to mainland Greece and their distance from the Ottoman administrative centers in Constantinople and Anatolia made them difficult to govern effectively. Furthermore, their rugged terrain and dispersed nature required substantial resources to maintain control, resources that the weakening Ottoman state could ill afford. Demographically, the island's populations were predominantly Greek, with deep cultural and historical ties to mainland Greece. These ties were a significant factor in the island's alignment with Greek nationalist movements during the 19th century. The Ottomans' failure to integrate the island's populations into the broader framework of the empire left them susceptible to external influences and internal dissent. The loss of the Aegean Islands had profound implications for Turkey and the region as a whole. For Turkey, it marked the end of its centuries-long presence in the Aegean and a significant retreat from its former imperial territories. The island's loss also underscored the limitations of Ottoman power in the face of European colonialism and nationalism. For Greece, the acquisition of the Aegean Islands was a significant step in the realization of the megali idea, the aspiration to unify all Greek-populated territories. The islands became integral to Greek national identity and remain a core part of the modern Greek state. However, the legacy of the island's loss continues to influence Turkish-Greek relations. The Aegean remains a region of tension with disputes over maritime boundaries, airspace, and the militarization of the islands. These unresolved issues are a direct consequence of the historical processes that led to the island's separation from Ottoman control. The Turks' loss of the Aegean Islands was not an isolated event, but rather the culmination of centuries of geopolitical shifts, military defeats, and internal weaknesses. The rise of European powers, the spread of nationalism, and the strategic miscalculations of the Ottoman leadership all played critical roles in this process. The Aegean Islands, once vibrant outposts of Ottoman rule, became symbols of a declining empire and the emergence of a new geopolitical order in the Mediterranean. Today, their legacy continues to shape the complex and often contentious relationship between Turkey and Greece.